Moroccan chicken Mhammar is a delicacy, and my mom is back to show us how to make it. So my mom says this is the Moroccan way of cleaning chicken. It's very thorough. So you douse the chicken in salt, and we like to remove the skin. And then she's squeezing some lemon juice over the chicken and then poking holes in it, or scoring it is what it's called. And then she's going to leave the chicken soaking in some cold water and add some flour because she says the flour will take away the impurities.
Now that's it.
While we prepare the garlic and onions. This dish is all about the onions. So we are going to peel a lot of onions. And here, this is 6 large onions. And I mean really, really large onions. 12 large or 20 medium would be in place of these. So we're going to make this onion sauce called dermira, which is a delicacy in Moroccan cooking. It takes a very long time. You reduce the onions down until they're very sweet. I'm going to show you how we did this, but you need a lot of onions to make that sauce. Then we're going to go back to our chicken, and as my mom was explaining, it's easier to take off some of the impurities once it's sat in the water, lemon, and flour for a little bit. So that's what she's doing, and then she's just rinsing off each piece and then dousing it in salt again, and then she's going to rinse it off thoroughly
Until your water's clear.
and then place those chicken pieces off to the side, and then at that point, they'll be ready to cook. Now in a large pot on the stove, we can start adding our seasonings. And while we do that, I'm going to let my mom tell us a little bit about Moroccan cooking.
Moroccan tagines are not difficult to make at all. What's important is the amount of spices that you're using and the water ratio.
So we added the spices that are typical of Moroccan cooking: paprika, saffron, turmeric, ginger powder, salt, pepper. And we're making a paste out of it that we're going to coat our chicken pieces with. So you can see we keep adding water until it's a nice paste consistency. And the exact measurements are going to be in the caption. So take each piece of chicken and coat it thoroughly with the spice paste. And then we're adding a small bunch of cilantro that we tied with one of the stems. And then we're going to add about half of our onions to the pot. The other half we're going to add later once the first batch reduces a bit and makes some room. So I'm going to show you. We're going to add this half now, and then later in the video, you'll see when we add the rest of these. And then we're going to pour some oil over this. That's what I like about Moroccan tagines. You kind of just throw everything in the pot. You don't need to saute. You just let it stew over a long period of time. Then we're adding a chicken bouillon cube that we dissolved in some water to make a chicken stock, but you can add less water than we did if you don't want to have to reduce the onion sauce for so long at the end, and you're going to see what I mean there. But it's 1 chicken bouillon cube dissolved in some water. And then we're going to add our cilantro, add the lid, and then we're going to simmer this on medium until we build up some steam. Took about 20 minutes or so, and then we can lift the lid, and you can see it's starting to stew. Like, you can see that the water is starting to come out of the onions a little bit, and we're just going to look and see underneath and like kind of spread the sauce around a little bit. And then we're going to add the rest of our onions at this point because the onions in the pot have reduced to allow some room. So we're going to add the rest of our onions, and then we're going to add the lid back on and stew this again for another 30 minutes or so. While it's stewing, periodically lift the lid and check on it and look at how much water has been released by the onion. So about halfway through, you want to take a spoon and pour some of this broth over the onions that has been released to evenly incorporate all the flavors. So do this like maybe 10-15 minutes in, and then you can just cover it again and let it cook the rest of the way. The goal here is to get the chicken tender, but we're going to broil the chicken anyway to get color on it at the end. So all we need to do is get it tender, and then we're going to take it out later. Okay, so once our chicken is nice and tender, this was about 30 minutes later, we can lift the lid and you can see how much the onions have cooked. Then we're just going to use a tong to get the chicken pieces out of the stew. We can also remove our cilantro. We don't need it anymore. And we're going to spread all of the chicken pieces on a baking sheet, and then we're going to pour some of the broth over them. And then we're going to roast the chicken in the oven at 400 degrees until it's nice and brown. Okay, everyone, here comes the fun part. This is where we reduce our sauce to make that beautiful onion sauce dermira. And this takes a long time. You see how much liquid we have? By the time we're done, this is going to be unrecognizable to you. So we're just going to continue to simmer this on the stove, but you don't want to put the heat too high because we don't want it to burn on the bottom. And we're just going to continue to simmer and stir this while the onion sauce reduces. This took us, brace yourself, 2 hours. Now, if you add less water at the beginning, it will take you less time. However, the flavor develops the longer you simmer it, so think about that. but you want to reduce this pretty much completely until there's almost no water left. So while that's reducing, I asked my mom, what if you want to use meat other than chicken for this recipe? And here's what she had to say.
Okay, you said if you want to use meat instead of chicken, what kind of meat is acceptable? Lamb?
Lamb is good. Beef.
You can use beef
You
for
can
this?
use beef,
Okay,
yes.
but then you'd be using big chunks of beef, right?
You would be using, yes, not little tiny stew.
Bone in,
Bone in is
big
good,
cut of
yes.
beef. Okay.
Actually, lamb would be very good with this.
Okay.
But I like it with chicken. 'Cause
I like it
the
with chicken.
sweetness, and the chicken goes good with the sweet flavor.
Yeah, I think the chicken is good too.
This is about 1 hour into reducing on the stove, and look how it's a darker red color, and see the bubbles that are there. This means that there's still water there that's evaporating. So you want to keep doing this, and a good tell is when you no longer see the bubbles, that's when you know it's reduced enough. And you might be looking at this and think, oh, this sauce is definitely reduced, but it's really not. Like, you're going to be shocked at the end when you see how much we actually reduced this. You just want to keep going. So I would recommend making this recipe early in the day so that you have enough time without getting frustrated at how long it's taking to reduce it. So if your iftar party is, 7:30 p.m., I would start making this at no later than 1 in the afternoon. Earlier, the better. And I would, give yourself enough time because you really want to reduce this. That's what's going to make the flavor really develop. And I've seen other recipes and videos of this, and no offense to anybody, but a lot of people do not reduce the sauce enough, but you cannot get that signature flavor of chicken Mhammar without reducing the sauce, because the onions get sweet when they reduce. And this, if you never had this dish, you're going to be actually surprised at the flavor because it's very sweet, but it's this amazing flavor that you can only get by really reducing those onions down. So try not to lose patience with that process. This is about 1.5 hours in. You can see how much more it's reduced. And then here at this point, this is about, I would say, like maybe almost 2 hours at this point, and you can see we're almost at the finish line here. It's really, really a deep dark red color, and the bubbles are minimum. So when your jarmira or onion sauce looks like this, you know you're almost done. And look at how the oil is starting to separate. That's the tell when you know that this is really done. No more water bubbles, and the oil is separating from the sauce. Now look at how deep this red color has gone. It's so beautiful. This is why it's called Mhammar, because of the red color, red in Arabic. Now we are all ready to serve this. This is a classic Moroccan serving platter. It's porcelain, but just take out your nicest platter. And you want to spread a little bit of the onion sauce on the bottom and then start to layer the chicken pieces on top. And once they're all nice and layered, you can start to pour the onion sauce on top of the chicken. And if you know anything about Moroccan cooking, you know it's all about the final presentation. So take your time with this. And that is our beautiful final dish. You can serve this with some crusty baguette or Moroccan bread and dig in. It is so delicious. And the onion sauce, people tend to fight over it because that's the best part of this meal. With the tender chicken underneath, it is just my absolute favorite Moroccan dish of all time. I hope you give this recipe a try and enjoy.